What if I told you the original sin wasn't the apple? What if the event that truly broke the world and unleashed hell on earth was something else entirely? A rebellion so great, so catastrophic, it made the serpent in the garden look like a minor distraction, a story hidden in a book they banned. This is the hidden history of the Watchers, the real story of why our world is the way it is today, a truth they tried to erase. They were not quite angels, not yet demons, a third type of being, sent from the heavens for a single sacred purpose. Their original mission was to observe humanity, to watch over our fledgling race from a celestial distance as silent, holy guardians. But their observation turned to desire, their guardianship twisted into interference. They broke their one sacred command: do not intervene. Genesis 6 reveals their crime. The sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful and took them as wives. That single verse shattered the boundary between heaven and earth, an act of cosmic treason that would unleash a nightmare upon the world. These divine beings, 200 of them, descended upon Mount Hermon, led by their chief, Shemyaza, swearing a binding, eternal oath. They bound themselves by mutual curses, a pact of rebellion from which none of them could ever turn back, sealing their own damnation. These Watchers, divine beings sent to oversee mankind, crossed the line. They descended, they desired, they defiled. And from their union with human women came giants, the Nephilim, beings of immense power, violence, and an insatiable, corrupting hunger. Their height was said to be immense, their strength capable of crushing armies, their very presence a shadow that fell over the land. They consumed all the work of man, the grain, the wine, the oil, the livestock. And when that was not enough to satisfy them, they began to devour mankind itself. The Book of Enoch describes their horrific violence, their cannibalism, and their thirst for blood. The earth itself cried out. The souls of the dead cried to heaven, a plea for justice against the monstrous giants and their angelic fathers. But the story doesn't end there. The Book of Enoch, a buried ancient text, reveals what these Watchers did next. The Watchers taught humanity forbidden knowledge, secrets of war, sorcery, seduction, and power. They gave us fire before we had faith. Their leader, Shemyaza, taught the art of enchantments and the cutting of roots. Azazel taught the forging of weapons of war. He revealed to men how to make swords, knives, and shields, turning a world of wood and stone into an age of bronze and blood. He taught women the art of deception, cosmetics, eyeliner, and precious stones to create a beauty that was an illusion, a snare. The Watchers taught the secrets of the stars, of astrology, of reading the signs in the heavens, a knowledge meant only for God. They gave us weapons before we had wisdom. They gave us power before we had character. They corrupted humanity from the inside out, and the earth groaned under the weight of their influence. A world once filled with simple tribes was now a sea of warring armies. God saw the corruption. The wickedness of man was great, and every intention of his heart was only evil, continually. He was not silent. The cries of the innocent, the blood of the slain, the groaning of the very earth reached the highest courts of heaven. And heaven responded with a swift and terrible judgment, not just on mankind, but on the Watchers themselves, the architects of this chaos. The archangel Raphael was commanded to bind Azazel, hand and foot, and cast him into the utter darkness of the desert. There he was to be imprisoned in a pit of sharp stones, his face covered, to await the great and terrible day of judgment. The archangel Gabriel was sent to incite war among the Nephilim themselves, turning the giants against each other in a frenzy of self-destruction. The archangel Michael was commanded to bind Shemyaza and the other Watchers, casting them into the valleys of the earth, into their fiery prison. There they would be trapped for 70 generations, until the day of their final judgment and their final torment in the abyss of fire. The Great Flood wasn't just about human sin. It was about cleansing the earth of a terrifying divine rebellion. It was the only way to wash away the corrupted bloodline of the giants and to bury the forbidden knowledge that had poisoned all of humanity. The Watchers had changed humanity forever, and now they would pay the ultimate price for their cosmic treason and their sin. But here's the haunting truth. Their influence never fully vanished. Though their bodies were imprisoned, their teachings survived in the shadows. The echoes of their forbidden knowledge still linger in ancient myths of gods who came from the sky, who loved mortal women, who taught mankind secrets. You can hear their whispers in occult rituals, in secret societies, in the unending human hunger for a power that has no accountability, and some believe they will return, not the angels themselves, but their influence, their corrupting knowledge in the final days. That the veil between our world and theirs will thin again, that the spirit of the Watchers will rise, that the Nephilim will walk once more, not as giants of flesh and blood, but as ideologies of power, as technologies that promise to make us like gods, to conquer death, as political and social systems that promise a man-made paradise, a utopia built on forbidden knowledge, a new Tower of Babel. Because the Watchers didn't just corrupt our genetics, they corrupted our desire. They planted a seed of rebellion in the human heart. They taught humanity to reach for heaven, but without holiness, to seize knowledge, but without wisdom, to gain power, but without love. And that same ancient, terrible temptation still burns in our world today, a fire that was first lit by a fallen, celestial race. But there is hope. Because for every Watcher who fell from grace, there were legions of angels who stood firm, loyal to the throne of God. For every shadow that descended, there was a greater light that remained, a power that the Watchers, in their pride, had forgotten. Michael still fights against the darkness. Gabriel still speaks the truth of heaven. The angel of the Lord, Christ himself, still reigns. And the blood of Christ speaks a louder, more powerful word than the whispers of an ancient and defeated rebellion. The sacrifice on the cross was not just for human sin, it was the ultimate answer to the cosmic corruption the Watchers had unleashed. The flood was a cleansing of water, the cross was a cleansing of blood, a final perfect remedy for a world poisoned by a divine fall. The Watchers changed humanity, but they did not define it. They are a chapter in our story, but they are not the end of it. We were made in the image of God, not in the shadow of giants. Our destiny was written by a loving Creator, not by rebellious angels. And though the Watchers fell from the heavens, we, through grace, can rise. We can choose a different path than the one they showed us. If this stirred something in you, if you felt the weight of ancient rebellion and the call to divine truth, then don't stop here. The Bible is filled with these hidden stories, these cosmic battles that shape our world in ways we are only now beginning to understand. Subscribe to Hidden Bible Mysteries because the war between heaven and earth is not over, and the Watchers are not done yet.